Hi, I'm Pam,
And I'm Justin.
and we like to talk about monsters.
Yes, we do. What are we talking about today?
Well, Justin, we are going to talk about black dogs.
Black dogs.
Yes. There are many legends of the black dog.
Yeah?
Yeah. They have various names, origins, and settings.
Cool.
One thing that they do have in common, though, is their appearance. In most cases, they are rather large, like 7 feet tall large.
So, like, really large.
Like really large. Like
Okay.
we're not talking just like some sort of Great Dane, which
Yeah.
is huge. We're talking like,
Like draft horse size.
yeah, big.
Okay.
They're big boys or
Yeah.
girls. They can be big boys or girls. So they're large. They're black, obviously.
Yeah.
And they often are described to have shaggy coats,
Okay.
like fur. Their fur is shaggy.
Yeah.
And they have glowing red eyes.
That's pretty distinctive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually 2 of them,
Usually. But not always.
but not always.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
All right, then.
Most often than not, black dogs are associated with bad luck and are death omens.
Death omens.
Yep. In most cases, they are death omens.
Everybody wants to hear stories about death omens until you see your own.
Yeah. Well, and that's why when you see one of these puppers on the road or something, you just don't go over and pet them because,
Yeah.
I mean, don't even look at them.
Right. Except by the time you notice them, you've looked at them and now it's too late.
That's right.
I guess that's how death omens work.
I guess.
It's like, whoops, too late.
Too late. You're dead.
Cannot unsee.
Most of the black dogs stalk local roads, and if you see one, then your time may soon be up. But some are actually benevolent, and they are protective creatures over their local haunts.
Okay, cool. So, like, these are just regional dogs, regional benevolent black dogs. Like,
Yeah. Black dog stories originate across Europe.
Okay.
Like, there's so many of these stories. So while there are these black dog sightings across Europe, no other place has more black dog sightings than in the UK. They just seem to have a lot of them.
Okay.
So I've chosen a few of these black dogs to talk about today, or a couple of them actually, 2 types of black dogs to speak of.
Yeah.
Just because there was so many, I just didn't really know how to narrow it down, so I've chosen 2. The first one that I'm going to get into is the Barghest.
Okay. Cool.
Bargeist, perhaps?
Yeah.
Yeah,
One sounds less British.
one sounds less British. Maybe a little bit more German, which apparently that could be the origins of the word.
Yeah.
Like ghost bear or something like that. So the Barghest lore originates in northern England,
Okay.
more specifically in Yorkshire.
All right. Yeah.
Apologies if I did not pronounce that correctly. If you're wondering where Yorkshire is, I'm going to pop up a map. But it is an area in northern England known for its Roman and Viking heritage, Norman castles,
Yeah.
medieval abbeys,
Okay.
and national parks. So saith the Google.
Nice.
I looked real hard into that. Like most other black dogs in folklore, the Barghest is known to be a portent of death.
Right. Yeah.
Meaning that if you see one, your time is soon up. That's it, folks. You're a gonzers. You're gonzers.
Game over, man.
Yeah, game over, man. Although apparently, if you just catch a glimpse of one, you might live for a few months.
Right. Instead of
Like,
just like,
out of the
on the
corner of your eye. Oh, shit. But if you see one full on, you're dead. That's it. Like that night.
sounds very scientific.
All of this is so scientific. So scientific.
Very empirical.
Anecdotal,
Yeah.
hearsay, first account sightings,
Yeah.
passed down,
From people who,
oral
had to
history.
say what they saw and then they croaked immediately after the telling.
Local legends, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like that's why it was kind of hard to pick through this a little bit, because it is that like folkloric local legends and tellings, like that you grew up hearing in your area, probably about somebody who once died of a black dog. Of a black dog.
I caught the black dog.
Somebody who died from a black dog sighting.
How did he go? Oh, black dog sighting.
The black dog sighting.
Rough.
Granted, the appearance of the black dog might be enough to just frighten you to death.
Right. I mean,
it's pretty
7
terrifying
foot tall,
sight.
red-eyed, shaggy
Yeah,
dog.
yeah. So, you might just die out of fright because it's a huge, monstrous goblin of a beast. Goblin of a beast. That's how it's described.
Yeah.
With huge teeth and claws.
Okay. But goblin.
Goblin. They use the word goblin. And actually, a lot of these black dogs are known as goblin dogs. Or especially the Barghest is specifically like it's referred to in multiple sources. Like I have a couple of just mythology books where it covers some of this information.
Yeah.
And the Barghest is called a goblin dog, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like how do you become a goblin dog? And I think it's just that goblin word because I'm thinking D&D and goblins and or any other fantasy. And
so that's where I've heard Barghest before is from the Dungeons and Dragons Monster Manual, and their other shape is a goblin.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was gonna look up the Barghest in the in the Monster Manual.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. Like that was on my little mental to-do list before doing this is like, hey, maybe you should look them up in the Monster Manual and see what it says about them. At least what do we have? Fourth edition. I should have looked them up in the 4th edition Monster Manual.
Yeah.
And seen what it says. So okay, so that.
Yeah.
I mean, again,
they have an alternate form.
Yeah, well, D&D, though, they really do pull on mythology and folklore a lot to create their monsters. So that kind of makes sense to me that.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. That's kind of neat, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. They're also kind of, if they're not like a goblin beast of a dog, they can be some accounts have them looking like a large mastiff dog with fiery eyes, horns, and fangs.
Horns now, too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it just gets more fantastical as they talk along.
Is this like horns, or is it just like the ears? Or are they mistaking the ears for horns?
I don't know. They really don't specify because, obviously it's a black dog with horns and fangs. It's not maybe that was his ears that I was seeing.
And I guess if you get too much of an eyeful, you're gone before you can tell anybody.
Yeah. I don't know. I think if you saw a black mastiff with fiery red eyes, horns, and fangs, that might be terrifying enough. So if you are a pet owner who has one of those dogs, maybe that's a good Halloween costume for next year for you.
Put some horns on him.
Yeah, you could just say he's a little baby Barghest. And in some accounts, it's not a dog at all, but a huge bear with glowing eyes and huge claws.
So
which any kind
bear
of
that size sounds a lot more
right. And so if you did say it's a bear, and if you had any sort of light shine
right
reflecting off their eyes, it would look glowing, and bears have huge claws to begin with, so
and teeth.
It could it could be. It's again, we weren't there yonder ages ago when the first sightings were around and people died.
How long ago? Well, I mean, you're saying in like inspired by like Viking and Norman myth.
Like, well, and especially in this area, when I read that Yorkshire is like has a lot of Viking and Roman heritage, then it made me think, okay, well then you have a lot of other Viking culture and their mythology coming into play. And there was some accounts that even mentioned a black dog of Odin's that may have been the origin for some of these tales as well.
He was associated with wolves.
Yeah. So it's it's kind of interesting how they kind of all interweave and connect and change over time
Yeah.
as people move into locations and then
Move in.
I was being nice about it. And then their culture belief systems remain
Yeah.
and get passed down through,
That's cool.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I was thinking when I was reading some of this that the bear, the black bear with the glowing eyes and claws and the big black dog, for some reason it reminded me of the movie Attack the Block.
Oh man. That
which
was
is
a great
movie.
Fantastic.
So great. If you haven't seen it, watch Attack the Block. We rewatch it and it's
About every year.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we watched it this year.
Well, not this year yet.
Oh,
we
right.
watched
It's
it.
2023. We
Yeah,
definitely
we
have
watched
not
it in
watched it this
2022.
year. So you may be wondering, where do these beasties show up? And as we've kind of
Yeah.
talked about, they show up in really specific areas or locales. Like they're known to come out in like certain spots. I went through the information about Bargeist, and I just wrote down some of the locations and the accounts from specific areas and
Okay.
kind of what people had seen. So that's kind of how I did this. And basically what those dogs do, black dogs do in those locations. So there's apparently one in Leeds
Okay.
that when it shows up, all of the dogs in town bark. It just
Nice.
causes all the dogs to bark.
The neighborhood choir.
Yeah, so that's how they know the black dog's there, because all the dogs are barking. Can you imagine living there, though? I don't know. If you're from Leeds, tell me, or comment down below or whatever. Is that a thing? Like, hey, all the dogs are barking. Well, there must be the Barguest is out there, like, stirring them up. Like, I kind of wonder if that's
Sounds
kind of like how
Kind
that
of
would
like
happen,
a
right?
thing that would happen
Like
a lot.
local thing?
Like
Maybe that you just kind of say?
like twice a week.
Yeah. Could be. Yeah. I don't know. Like maybe it's just a turn of phrase that you use. I have no idea. But yeah, there's one in Leeds that caused all the local dogs to bark when it shows up. There's a shape-shifting Barguest near Darlington.
Okay.
It usually it can take the form of a few different things from what I was reading. One of them is a headless man.
Oh.
Which is not a
that
dog
sounds
at
like
all.
a different story.
But the headless man vanishes in flames.
Okay.
It can also be a headless woman.
Okay.
It can appear as a cat,
Right.
a rabbit, or a regular black dog.
They are really trying to pile everything on one here.
It's the Barguest. Oh, I saw a rabbit. Nope, it was the Barguest.
Was it even like a 7-foot tall rabbit with glowing eyes?
Right? Like, how do you
Like-
know it's the Barguest, or is
Oh,
it just that dog?
Are we coming back to wandering home from the pub?
I
Incense
feel
again?
so. I feel a lot of these
Okay.
are wandering home from the pub. Cheers.
Cheers.
So these accounts were from the 1870s. So,
Okay.
The
Yeah.
1800s of it all.
Back when all of their alcohol was safer to drink than the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And this shape-shifting one was spotted near Darlington and Leeds, apparently.
Oh.
Another more terrifying one is one that was spotted around the city of York. And this one preyed upon travelers in the narrow streets.
Okay.
I'm really not sure why this one creeped me out. And it's not like a creep out. It's more of like a visualization of being in a narrow street. It reminded me of Cabinet of Curiosities sort of scenario where you're in some sort
okay.
of tiny locale, like coming out, I don't know, walking home at night or something, and this giant dog thing is blocking your path. And that just was...
Crowded.
Yeah, because
buildings all crowded together.
you don't have anywhere to go, and it's very claustrophobic feeling, and maybe that's what it is. But I really felt like that would make a good adventure for a TTRPG.
Yeah.
Right? Like you
Sounds
show up
good.
in a village, and they got a problem. It just happens to be a Barguest. So you're welcome.
Steal this hook.
So in other accounts, the Barguest being a death omen, it can show up when a notable person dies.
Okay.
And the Barghest leads the other local dogs in a sort of death procession,
Oh,
heralding the noble person's or notable person's death with howling and barking.
right.
And if you get in the Barghest way in all of this, he'll strike you with his paw and leave a festering wound that does not heal.
Graphic. Stay out of his way.
Yeah. Otherwise, he'll
Yeah.
smack you. And then you'll have a wound that doesn't heal, apparently.
That's, you know, that was just kind of like the trend back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, I got
With
a splinter.
festering wound? Yeah.
Nice knowing everybody.
Prior to penicillin and other like healing things that we
Yeah.
had. Anyway, so yeah, the Barghest would announce this person's death throughout the village and be followed by all the other dogs. It'd be kind of the ruckus, I guess.
I guess that probably leads directly into the whole chorus of dogs barking throughout the city.
So, in case this wasn't sinister enough, apparently the Barghest could also become invisible. Pop! Oh shit! It's
on the
there.
other hand,
I'm dead.
it's like, well, I can't see it, so
Yeah, but then does it turn invisible and suddenly appear, and then you're like, oh crap. Well, thanks. Now you're sneaky. You couldn't kill enough people before being visible. You just had to turn
now you're just
invisible,
being targeted.
right?
They got to get past all of like the people that it's not interested in.
Right. So not only was it invisible, but it was cloaked in these large rattling chains. So while you wouldn't see the Barghest, you would hear it coming because you would
okay.
hear the clanking of chains, much like in A Christmas Carol, with the rattling chains of Marley and I got the Muppets in my head.
Well, so the Muppets was Marley and Marley.
And
But in the original, it's just Marley.
Yeah. It was just
the
one guy. That's right. If it wasn't turning invisible or heralding someone's death in the town or just freaking people out on roads around anywhere,
Who refused to look it in the eye.
it would lie across the threshold of somebody's home
Ooh,
who was marked for death.
so you just gonna trip over it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just open your door.
You're
Oh,
going home one day and you're
face
like,
full of black dog.
honey, there's a black dog lying on the porch. What did you do today?
Maybe all they
Apparently.
really needed to do was just pet the black dog, actually.
They'll bite you, though.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
that's the thing.
don't do that then.
Don't do that. I mentioned a few books we have.
Yeah.
I'm losing my voice. I'm terribly sorry. In our dictionary of mythology that we have,
Yeah.
it said that the Barghest would also make splashing noises as it walked.
Oh.
Like squashy water splashy noises.
Okay.
And it's unable to cross water.
That's counterintuitive, since it sounds like it's always crossing
It sounds like it's from water or it was just in water. I don't know. But it can't cross water. And it sounds like it's got a soaker as it's
okay.
padding around.
It's kind of a common theme among like some spirits and undead is that they can't cross running water and stuff. That's kind
Yeah,
of neat.
specifically, I think it was like rivers or something like that. So I suppose
Like
if you
flowing
really did
water.
want to escape one, you could cross a river. But I
Throw
mean,
yourself.
you've
into the
already
river.
seen it. So maybe you'll drown at that
Yeah.
point.
Also, not many people could swim well. They didn't have lessons back then. So throwing yourself into the river to escape a Barghest would probably just like end it all right there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to help you at all to use that to your advantage,
Yeah.
that they can't cross water. What is that? Like, you're over there, I'm over here. And the dog's like, yeah, you still see me, fool.
Kind of reminds me. So you mentioned some of them are like, oh, it's a headless person.
That was just one
That if you
specific
escape
account.
across a bridge, perhaps the
Like,
chase ends.
are you thinking Sleepy Hollow?
Yeah.
That sort of story?
Yeah, the legend of the headless horseman. You know,
Oh,
which
yeah, that's interesting.
they would have carried some of these myths and legends with
Mm-hmm.
the colonists when they came over. So that's kind of a cool link.
Yeah, I never even thought about it. Like, my brain, I thought about Sleepy Hollow a little bit when I thought it was reading about
headless
the
thing?
headless thing,
Yeah.
but not about the water crossing. I didn't make
Yeah.
that connection by the time I had gotten to that part.
It's
Yeah.
kind of a neat tie-in.
That is a neat tie-in.
And usually you didn't survive a headless horseman encounter either. So that's kind of neat.
Unless you went across the bridge, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's actually true in
Might
the
have
Headless
to
Horseman
do a video about that one too.
legends or mythology, but, yeah, that's got us thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll get you thinking too. So there were so many of these Barghest legends across England that it was sort of hard to piece it together. Like,
Yeah.
I have a lot that I've listed here, but I don't know if I have. It was a little bit overwhelming. So if I have anything wrong, or if you feel there's something you want to add in the comments, like you have your own family legend,
Yeah.
let us know. I think that would be interesting. I think other people would like to hear about it too.
Yeah. Family legends are awesome.
Yeah, I think that's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other kind of black dog that I wanted to talk about was the black shuck.
Okay.
Yeah, it seemed to be, when I was looking it up, the Barghest seemed to be pretty popular, and the black shuck also seemed to be pretty popular. A lot of these had a variety of other names, so depending on where they were from, they were called a different things. Sometimes even the Barghest ones were known as like a padfoot or something.
Okay.
So some of them I felt like I couldn't do any justice to pronounce them because they were in Welsh. And
Padfoot sounds super British.
Padfoot,
Sorry.
for my Canadian self, was a little bit easier for me to say.
Yeah.
So I apologize. But there were some others, but they all seem very similar in their
How do you
thing.
spell that?
Padfoot?
No. Shook.
Shook. It's Shuck.
Okay.
The black shook was shook or shuck, because I'm not sure. That could be a shuck and not a shook. When I was reading about that in multiple sources, they had two very specific historical accounts about the black shuck.
Okay.
There have been sightings of this one since 1127.
Ooh,
So
that's
we
going
go
pretty
on
far back.
way back.
That is
Yeah.
quite far.
Yeah. And they actually have, apparently there's documented account. This one you're going to find interesting.
Okay.
I was interested. This one, when I was reading about it, I don't know, it like not piqued my interest, but I got a little like, oh, that's kind of neat. Like,
Okay.
just one of those reactions, like, I should look more into that sometime later. So, oh yes, and the name shook or shuck comes from the Old English word skooka.
Okay.
Skucca. It's Old English.
Okay.
Don't know how to pronounce that one.
I'm not an old English expert.
The word means devil or fiend,
Oh, okay.
apparently. So this was kind of interesting. So the 1127 sightings come from near the town Peterborough, and it's an Abbot Henry who documented this account.
An abbot.
An abbot. And I'm going to read a little excerpt
Hey, abbot.
that I found.
Okay.
Why do you gotta do that? So this is an excerpt from his account in 1127.
Translated.
I'm assuming it has to be. It was the Sunday when they sing Exsurge Quer O D. Many men both saw and heard a great number of huntsmen hunting. The huntsmen were black, huge and hideous, and rode on black horses and on black he-goats, and their hounds were jet black with eyes like saucers and horrible. This was seen in the very deer park of the town of Peterborough, and in the woods that stretched from the same town to Stamford, and in the night the monks heard them sounding and winding their horns.
Wow.
Are you ready for it?
Okay.
These hunters
Yeah.
were known as the phenomenon. The hunters were known as the Wild Hunt.
I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah.
It sounded very much like the Wild Hunt. That's cool.
I thought that was cool. So,
Yeah.
yeah. You like that?
Yeah, that was neat.
Yeah. So these spectral hunts were common across Europe during this time,
Yeah.
which is, I found this was just like, when it got into this part, I was like, oh, this is what I wanted. Like these kind of like, oh, it could be this because of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So they were normally or usually associated with the changing of the seasons.
Yeah.
So when like the cold winds were blowing in
Right.
and people needed warnings to stay inside, because if you got stuck outside in the cold, you could succumb to death because it's cold.
Yeah.
And so I got like chills on my body. So if you didn't take shelter, like you could die during this period of time. But you know, people aren't necessarily gonna listen to, oh, it's the wind. The wind can kill me. Pfft, I'm not afraid of the wind, right? Like, what's that gonna do to me? So it was easier to get people to stay inside with the tale of a pack of rabid black dogs.
Okay. Yeah.
Then, hey guys, it's a wee bit nippy outside and maybe you should go indoors before you get frostbite.
Don't forget to dress warm.
Yeah.
Ah.
That's fine.
I just, drank a gallon of mead. I'll be fine.
I'll fill up on ale. It's okay.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting to see how these stories and legends could have possibly come about.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? Like that fascinates me. Like, 1127, this monk wrote about this wild hunt that went through, but they were like hauntings of spectral hunters throughout Europe.
That's cool.
That had big black dogs with them, apparently.
Apparently they left some behind, and they scattered across the English countryside.
And they were scary enough to make people stay indoors in wintertime.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that people back then would be like, literally anything could result in my death at any time. Why do you need warnings like this?
Were they that self-aware, though? I mean, gust of wind was a witch at this point in time.
Yeah,
so, to be honest, like...
The pressure changed and slammed my door shut. There must be a witch nearby.
You didn't have science. So if you find that one interesting, there's another one in 1577.
Okay.
That's also a very similar sort of environmental phenomenon.
Yeah.
That led people to say, oh, it's a big, dog. It's a big black dog. That's what did the devil dog. The devil did it. You know?
Yeah. I hear he was a pretty popular scapegoat.
Yeah. Maybe a scape dog.
I don't know that Wild Hunt referenced he-goats, so that's kind of neat.
Yeah, well, in some of the descriptions of the black shuck, they actually describe them as more goat-like than dog-like, like a dog-goat thing. But I'll get to that.
All right.
I digress. So this one in 1577, some of the information I was reading was saying it was taking place in 2 churches in Suffolk, but I feel like it might have just been one church unless there's 2 of them in one specific area. At any rate, a church in Suffolk.
Okay.
On August 4th, 1577.
Very specific.
Because it was documented through oral accounts. Like later on, it was documented from oral accounts that specifically this date this happened. And they have, I suppose they have evidence still of when this occurred. So they have a date for this one. That's, I guess, the only thing for that.
So they like wrote it down.
Yeah.
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 Back then, if you wrote it down, it must be true. Why else would you take the time?
A lot of the times they're said to be like hellhounds or devil dogs or things like that. Hellhounds is something that you see a lot in this. So this particular hellhound or black dog or black shuck or black devil dog or whatever, on this date, it burst through the front doors of the church with the sound of thunder. Like there was a clap of thunder and it burst through the doors of the church. It went up past the entire congregation
Oh, multiple witnesses.
Multiple witnesses. It killed a man and a boy.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the process of killing, like all of this, it caused the church steeple to crash through the roof.
This is
Which is
starting to get pretty epic here.
But it wasn't the steeple crashing that caused the death of the man and the boy. No,
Of course not.
It was
the dog.
the hellhound,
Directly.
right? Directly. And as it left the church's north door,
Okay.
it left scorch marks on that door that can still be seen today.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Scorch marks. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can go see them. Here, I'll put up a picture.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
Yeah.
This one is surmised to be from electrical storm, which makes sense since it came through with the clap of thunder and like broke the steeple,
Yeah.
which came crashing through the roof. 2 people died and it left scorch marks on the door. But no, it was a hellhound.
What else could it
Could it be?
There was no such thing as
1577?
natural phenomenon.
It was just the 1500s of it all. So, so this also was documented
Okay.
as well by Abraham Fleming from oral accounts, I guess, from people that were there that was
Eyewitness
passed down.
accounts
And it's
from
in
the most reliable people in town.
yeah, it's called A Strange and Terrible Wonder. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to read that as well for you.
Okay.
So, this black dog, or the devil in such a likeness, God he knoweth all who worketh all, running all along the body of the church with great swiftness and incredible haste, among the people in a visible form and shape, passed between 2 persons as they were kneeling upon their knees and occupied in prayer, as it seemed, wrung the necks of them both at an instant, clined backward, insomuch that even at a moment where they kneeled, they strangely died.
Well, so this is the man and the boy.
Yeah, they died. Probably from a lightning strike.
Instantaneously.
Probably from a lightning strike. But I guess when people don't really know about certain things, and if something strange like that happens, you need to have some sort of reason to explain it all.
Yeah.
Or else it's frightening. And if you have an explanation, it's less frightening. Like if you don't have any other explanation, the same with any of the other black dog accounts. And I'm not dismissing your grandfather's tale or something. I don't want to do that. I love these like legends and stuff. I think they're great. But without any other explanation, some other explanation comes forth, right? So I feel like that's sort of what's happened in a lot of these cases.
Nobody panics as long as there's a plan.
Yeah. And so, okay, somebody died. Well, he must have seen a black dog, and that's why. I think it just makes it easier to understand if your uncle dies of a heart attack or your buddy whatever or a stroke or something else unexplainable in that period of time happens. It's easy to say, oh well, we saw this black dog and that's what happened, rather than admitting that you don't know what's going on at that time.
Yep.
Because they didn't know what was going on at that time.
Yeah. There was
So I find that interesting, like the human condition through the ages and how we always create these things to kind of help us.
Even today.
Yes.
There are people out there
let's not get into
creating myths and legends to help them get through every day.
We're not going to get into that. But yes. I find it fascinating that a church full of people were struck with lightning, and they were like, yep, the devil dog did it. But again,
because what else are you going to believe?
I even wrote here, I would like to say that this doesn't happen today and we are all rational human beings, but we all know that's not true. But we're not done yet. So that's like the Black Shuck and sort of like the historical accounts of it.
Okay.
There is a black shuck that apparently haunts the East Anglia in England.
Okay.
Anglia. I don't know how if I'm pronouncing these correct, and I've had a bit of vodka, so I apologize. East Anglia in England. And it is said to be a huge one-eyed dog the size of a donkey. So
One-eyed.
here's the whole, like, when I said glowing eyes, and it's
Yeah.
usually two, this one has
Okay.
one eye and it's the size of a donkey, which kind of brings us back to like the horned beast from the Wild Hunt. You know,
Donkey is
not
very
that donkeys
specific.
don't have
They're like-
horns.
yeah.
And I don't know how this like fits in with black dogs, but they're all sort of lumped into that black dog specter apparition myth,
Right.
folklore, sightings and stuff. I thought this one might be fun at parties
Yeah.
because green or red fire shoots from its eye.
Nice.
What do
That's
you
a
want-
pretty good party
What
trick.
do you want for your birthday, Sally? Oh, bring me the black shuck donkey that shoots fire from its eyes. This one haunts the salt marshes of the coastline,
Yeah. Okay.
and people have reported feeling its icy breath and wet, shaggy coat as it comes up beside them. It's like, that's just something like that in that description that's just so palpable. Like you can feel it or sense it, like the icy breath on your neck and like the fur that's coming up and it's kind of wet and cold.
Okay.
Yeah. That icy, shaggy pelt.
I think you're just describing English winter.
Canadian winter.
Yeah.
So depending on where you are, this one has two different outcomes.
Okay.
If you're in Suffolk or if you're in Suffolk or Norfolk,
Norfolk.
this shuck's companionship on the road brings sickness or death.
Oh, okay.
So if you're in those locations and you see this thing, you're dead or very ill. However, in Essex,
Okay.
you'll be happy to hear that it's more the benevolent kind.
Oh,
It's more of a guardian.
did someone from Essex write this?
It's more of a guardian, and it protects travelers on the roads.
Okay.
It actually protects travelers on the roads if they're attacked.
Oh,
Near cemeteries or gallows, it protects travelers. So if you're traveling along and you get attacked by a bunch of brigands or
beside other death omens.
yeah, you might be protected by this black shook.
Well, that's
But just specifically
Pretty good.
in Essex,
Right.
near those things.
right. But if you're in Suffolk or Norfolk, too bad.
Too
Game over.
bad. Sickness or death. You'll be happy to know that it's not all doom and gloom when it comes to black dogs.
Okay.
Many believe that they are spirit guides helping weary travelers along ancient roads that were made during the Neolithic or Bronze Age.
Ooh, way back.
Yeah. So these ancient roads or causeways were used to lead animals from one field to the next. And in this one area that I actually read, they were saying if you thought the Romans were the ones who brought the roads here, they were wrong. Because they had roads
Yeah.
for this very reason. So, and they were often like had a bit of an embankment and they were built up to lead their like sheep or cattle or whatever they had, their animals from field to field.
Right.
So these black dogs can be seen along these causeway near burial grounds
Yeah.
and guiding lost travelers along their way.
All right. So like the old stories, they're more benevolent, and then
Yeah.
the newer stories that, you know,
They seem to be not so good.
the Northern Europeans brought with them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how
Okay.
that is, right?
Yeah.
So you're ever lost in northern England, you might find a friend in a black dog, but just don't get too close because they bite.
And maybe, you know, avoid eye contact. Do not stare directly into dog.
If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button to smithereens with a big old monster paw.
And subscribe and hit the notification bell as if it was like the dangling bell of a satanic he-goat.
Yes.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Pam.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.